Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot, CEO of the experience agency D-Flash. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I get to interview a phenomenal Black woman a day as part of Black History Month. And this week's episode is no different. I'm so excited to have Amani Duncan, who's the head of music for MTV, on the show. We're going to talk about how she got there, music, her book that's coming out. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. Take a listen. Hi, Amani.
Hi, Laura.
It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm psyched. This is going to be fun. So, every episode is always the same when we start off. First question is always the same. So, Amani, what was your first job?
My first unpaid job after college was interning at Def Jam West, which they had a small satellite office in Los Angeles. It had maybe like 5 people working there. And I'm from Los Angeles, and I wanted to work in the music business after deferring law school, which my parents are still mad about.
Years later.
Yeah, literally. And so that was my first unpaid job, but I treated it like a job. And there you go. And then after maybe 3 months of interning, they hired me as the office manager of 5 people.
Yeah. A whole 5 people.
I mean, but you know what? I took it because that was my way in. And I wasn't going to say no to that opportunity. I wanted to work in the music business. The first job wasn't ideal, but there was no way I was going to pass it up.
And you made connections, and you made a good impression, and you used those connections to get your next job.
Exactly.
So, every first job always sort of correlates to what people do now.
Yes.
Like the connections, the people.
Yep.
So, okay. So you end up being an office manager.
Yes.
How are we sitting here right now? What's that journey?
Well, it's been a really interesting journey. When I was the office manager of 5 people in Los Angeles, I got connected with Kevin Liles. And at the time, Kevin was the EVP of promotions. Now he is an author, co-founder, CEO of 300 Entertainment. He's just an amazing human being. But back in the early 90s, he was the executive vice president of promotions. So I got his number. I met him once. I got his office number, and I proceeded to call him every single day, asking him to relocate me to the New York office, because I was like, I need to be where the action
is.
Yeah, like the LA office is quiet and sleepy. I need to be in the mix. And calling every day, after a while, he stopped taking my calls. But I was actually okay with that because I wanted to be on his call sheet every single day. Even though I was a nag, I was so persistent, and it paid off because he calls me on a Friday afternoon and he says, "Well, are you ready?" And I was like, "Ready for what?" He goes, I'm moving you to New York." And he said, in spite of himself, when he was thinking about who should take the job, I was front of mind. He was like, "You drove me insane," but
you kept on calling.
I just couldn't think of anyone else. So they moved me. I was on a plane. I was on the red eye Sunday, arrived at JFK like at 6 a.m. And that was really the start of my career. And so I stayed with Def Jam, got promoted to, senior director of video promotions. And MTV was my client. And so was BET and all the video channels. And then we merged with Island Records and became Island Def Jam. And in 2000, after asking to be promoted to vice president, and they said no, I left. Yeah. And it was a big decision because we were like family,
but like, I'm not getting this job.
But I was like, I was dissatisfied. I was at the top of my game, over-delivering, first person in the office, last to leave. And
you knew your value.
I knew my value and I knew my worth. And it was really because my parents instilled that in my sister and I. They were, they were so persistent And it was just part of our like household vernacular that we were exceptional, that we were destined for success and greatness. So we just believed it. And that really, to this day, it's knowing your worth has, advanced my career in so many different ways. So I left Island Def Jam, went to Virgin Records, which was ice cold. They were, oh my God, there was no hits. Even though they had Janet Jackson and Lenny Kravitz, it was just bad management. So we were part of the restructure team that was going to come in and revitalize the label. And everyone thought I was crazy to leave Def Jam at the highest heights, and go to a label that was super cold. But I needed to do it because it was something I needed to prove to myself.
So you could do it.
Was I good, or were people just calling because of the logo, because it was Def Jam? And I turned it around at Virgin. I got things played on the MTV and in BET that no one thought would happen. And I stayed at Virgin, and we merged with Capitol and became Capitol Music Group. I stayed there for 8 years and ended my tenure there as the head of marketing for the pop rock side. And I was the first African-American man or woman to ever run a marketing department for pop and rock music.
Awesome.
So I feel really good about that. It was just a huge milestone in my career. And then I left there in 2008, and I became the chief marketing officer for Sean Combs, Diddy. And it was just such an amazing job because I oversaw all 6 of his brands. So Spirits, Film and TV, Sean John Clothing, the fragrances, his philanthropy work. And what's the last one? I know I'm missing something. Oh, his agency. He had an in-house agency. So I turned the agency from just kind of taking projects that he brought on to an actual pitching agency. And we went out and we won a lot of accounts, which was so great. So we were bringing in incremental money to Sean Combs Enterprises. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And then I left there and did something really odd. I went into manufacturing.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Because I constantly throughout my career wanted to diversify my portfolio. I never wanted to be known as this girl. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be branded the music girl. I wanted to be branded as an executive.
Period. Full stop.
Exactly. That was able to transition from industry to industry with ease and have a very successful track record. So I went to Martin Guitar, and they are the oldest American acoustic guitar makers. They are like the Rolls Royces of cars. I mean, they're just incredible, and they're bar none, and they're super expensive. They're a luxury brand, but they never had a marketing department, which is crazy. When I started, they were 179 years old.
Oh my God.
Never had a marketing department. So obviously, in this day and age, they started losing market share because there was a younger guitar maker that splashed, on the scene and was taking their market share. So I stayed there for 6 years, did amazing work, created a publication for them. I was the editor-in-chief. I did a documentary that won 9 film festival awards. I created their brand ambassador program and recruited Ed Sheeran and did a line of custom signature guitars that sold out before we even went to market, and each was tied to his album releases, and just, grew their social media. When I started, they had like 100 people on Facebook. We ended with 6 digits. So just really, it was a white space. I did all these strategic partnerships with the Ace Hotel, with Stetson, the hats, and just organic partnerships. Became the global partner for the Ace Hotels. We opened in London, New York, LA, Palm Springs. It was just incredible. And they allowed me to just basically color outside the lines, to do what was very non-traditional in the manufacturing acoustic business. But for me, that was all just what I did, as a marketer. I really wanted to be able to say I managed blue collar workers. And I am, gosh, I don't know anyone else in my industry that has done that. And it really is a different management style that I did not know about. So to add that to my managerial skill sets has been tremendous. So when that time was up, when the time came where I was like, I think I've done all I can do, MTV called.
Of course, because that's what happens.
Exactly. And it just started as a series of conversations with the president and the GM. We weren't even talking about a job. We were just having conversations over lunch and brunch and dinners. And then eventually they offered me the head of music role for MTV. And a lot of people question, well, what does that even mean? Because they don't play music videos. And my response is always, playing music videos on MTV is a waste of inventory. Music videos are on demand. YouTube did that. So our job is to create a global music strategy, which we've done, that adds continuous value to our partners. And our partners are the artists, the managers, and the labels. So we've actually did that, and we've integrated music in a purposeful way on the channel. So instead of trying to be an outlier, I was like, we're going to find the openings and insert ourselves so that it feels organic to the brand. So that's why I'm here.
So, very simple story, no twists and turns. I mean, really.
Easy. It's been a piece of cake.
Like, there's been no roughness.
No roughness, exactly. As if.
So, basically, you can run for president now. You could.
And I would never take the job.
But you probably could because, wait, you have experience managing executives, highly demanding type A people, as well as blue-collar workers, and can speak to other communities, and you happen to be a black woman. You should run.
Yeah, no.
No, same. Listen, I mean, one of my clients said that to me recently. Like, Laura, you should run for president. I was like, okay, first of all, no.
It's a horrible job. I'm like,
don't
never.
Want that job.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I wasn't born here, so I'm not. Even though I'm a U.S. citizen now, so I can't become president.
Yeah.
So therefore,
but you would be a good president.
No.
Yeah.
I don't have patience.
Oh.
I mean, I will say totally cult leader. Everyone loves me.
Yes.
But not a thing. No
okay.
thanks. Also, similarly, like you always want to color outside the lines, and like you always want to be challenged and figure out what's next. And like, I mean, how do you go from being at like hanging out with Janet Jackson to blue collar workers who are stringing guitars?
Yeah.
Like, what is that like?
It's I always had an interesting perspective about the industry. Unlike a lot of people who are currently in the recorded music industry or just the music industry in general, they always wanted to be in the industry. I didn't. I was a political science major with a minor in international relations. I've traveled the world since I was 12. I was going to be a lawyer.
Same.
Yeah, I was very singular focused, just like a lot of people were singular in their focus to be in the music industry. So it wasn't like a childhood dream of mine. I kind of fell into it by happenstance. And so because I wasn't, it wasn't like this lifelong dream, I wasn't enamored by the artists. I just always treated them like normal people.
Yeah, you weren't going to fake this.
I was just like, this is a business for me. And, and it really worked to my favor because I was the only one not fawning over them. So they always wanted to be around me because I was just like normal.
You're like,
yeah, I was just like, hey, like this is what we got to do. And I wasn't twisting their arm to do it because I was like, this is your career, not mine. So if you don't want to go to radio, that's going to impact your album cycle. You know what I mean? So I was very like matter of fact about it. And I had a lot of success. So, I have a lot of respect for creators, for artists, for fine artists, people who actually create, directors, people who actually create content, or something. So when I went to Martin Guitar, I was really in awe of the craftsmen who to me were the artists.
Right.
They still make things by hand. They still make their guitars by hand. They use some technology, but the luthiers are literally in there whittling wood. And it is so, I mean, it was so inspiring. It was like, I would just go to the factory floor and just watch them create out of wood these beautiful guitars that people literally covet. And that's, to me, how I did the transition. I made them the rock stars. I made the artists and the guitars, the luthiers and the guitar, the rock star, just like over my career, I made a lot of careers happen for artists, was part of building their careers and getting them mainstream exposure. So for me, whether I worked in branding, at an agency, the product was the rock star. If I worked at a record company, the artist was a rock star. If I worked for a manufacturer, the product they crafted was the rock star. So I never went to companies that I wasn't passionate about. I turned down a lot of opportunities, a lot of big dollars. I never allowed myself to be swayed by money. I was like, because I go into things so wholeheartedly and I'm so passionate that I can't fake it. So if I just don't feel the passion with a brand or a company, I'm just not going to go there.
Because it's not worth it to you.
It's not worth it.
It's interesting because I think that's oftentimes the thing that, especially younger folks, don't get. It's like, yes, you can follow your passion, but like, what can you do to help you get to that? And oftentimes it's taking this first job to make this step and then seeing where that takes you.
Absolutely.
As opposed to being like, well, I'm only going to be this one thing. And it's like everyone now is a hybrid. And everyone now is a brand.
Exactly.
And so when you look at it, you have to think about what can I do to sort of like make my brand far more unique and interesting, and not saying no to interesting experiences, like going to the dinner, like the guitar thing. I mean, that it makes perfect sense. It would make perfect sense to me.
It did to me too. It didn't make a lot of sense to other people, because I think a lot of people are very myopic in reviewing, because you do have to review your career trajectory. I think people are really myopic about it. I think they don't see the possibilities, whereas I see possibilities in everything. I'm also constantly curious and easily bored. So
Same.
Yeah, exactly. So diversifying and going into different industries that I literally know. I didn't have a background in manufacturing. I didn't know anything about what it took to make a guitar and how long it took. So I was, a student, but I've constantly been a student in my life.
Yeah, I think as people forget that, like, when you were a kid, you were curious, right?
Right.
And that's when you had the most fun.
Exactly.
And when you had the most fun and you were curious, that's when the whole world opened up to you.
So many possibilities.
And like, why you want to lose that when you become an adult? I mean, like, I make the joke that I have like 18 million jobs because I'm always curious. Sure. Why not like figure out interesting things, meet new people? Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think the golden handcuffs is what limits most adults. As you start to get older, you got the bills and the house payments and the car payments and the kids. And I think that makes you a little slower to jump, but, and I'm speaking from personal experience. Like when I was younger, I was, a bit more aggressive. I was always fearless because I view the unknown as friendly. But as I've been getting older, I'm still fearless and jumping around, but I'm more strategic about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm just viewing the opportunity just a little differently. I still will take the jump though, but I'm pulling the layers of the onion back and looking at things a bit differently, because
that just comes with age.
Exactly. And experience. Exactly.
It's like you're not going to,
exactly.
It's like, look, you can make a leap when you're 29 and you have no responsibilities. You can make a different kind when you're approaching 40 and like, okay, what do I want to do for the next 30 years? And how do I set myself up for that? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So you've had all these awesome careers. Like I feel like you've had 8 different careers. Tell me about a time when you had a challenge. That was like really like, oh Lord. And then how did you get through it?
Yeah. There's been so many, but I think the one that comes front of mind was when I was still in the record business at Island Def Jam, and we merged with Island Records, so we became just this multi-genre label. And at the time, I was just doing the Def Jam roster, which is primarily, well, all black and hip hop. Mm-hmm. With a little bit of R&B sprinkled in there with Ashanti and so forth and so on.
Wow.
So, exactly. I pulled that name out. So, I was on the road constantly. I was still doing video promotion, so I was at MTV Spring Break or the VMAs or the movie awards. I was just like never at home. I was living out of a suitcase, and it was, exhausting but great. So, when I finally came back to the office and I wasn't scheduled to be anywhere for a couple of weeks, I caught up on all the, happenings that was going on around the office. And I found out that my counterpart on the Island side had not even half the roster size that I had, was male, white, and making probably twice as much as I was. Yeah. Yeah. So, it goes back to knowing your worth, because a quiet mouth will not get fed.
Exactly.
So I went to my bosses, Kevin Lyles was still there, Julie Greenwald, who's now the chairwoman of Atlantic Records, and Leor Cohen, who is now the global head of music at YouTube. And I marched myself into their office and I gave them a value proposition, which was to increase my pay and give me the entire roster. Pop, rock, urban, country, all
Take
of
them
it.
Out.
All of it.
All of it.
And because of my track record, they couldn't say no. So they did exactly what I asked.
You
and
got
at
the number
that
you
time,
wanted?
I got the number I wanted, because at the end of the day, it's always about the money. And at that time, I was one of 3 African Americans who had the entire roster under their purview at a major record label.
3.
Only me and 2 others. And I was the only female.
But of course. Come on.
So, that was a challenge that could have festered if I didn't take action. I've been the first so many times that I stopped even thinking about it. Right. I'm the first African American to hold this position. I think it's really important because I believe I'm paying it forward and I'm making room for others to follow. I've been called outside my name more times than I can count. I've been sabotaged. I've been set up for failure. I'm an agent of change. And that comes with a lot of, it comes with the weight of responsibility, but you're disruptive. So people are rooting for you to fail. Mm-hmm. So I'm an agent of change. I'm a woman and I'm African American. So I actually expect the nonsense to happen. And no company has failed me yet.
You're like, what foolishness is your phone today?
But, getting a thick skin and each time something challenging happened, I learned from it and I put it in my arsenal of knowledge so that I'm ahead of the game. I do a preempted strike. I try to stay above the fray and ahead of everyone. It's exhausting because I am working twice as hard, but I think it's worth it for the reason I just said. I'm hopefully making room for other people to have a seat at the table that look like me.
It's incredible, but it's also like the work of a Black woman. It just is. It's like
it truly is.
And I think that it's interesting. Like I went with 30 interviews at this point. It's not that I haven't. I always interview lots of Black women as part of the podcast because I also want to center and show, look, y'all exist.
And we thank you for that.
I appreciate it. But it's like we uniquely have the gift and the curse.
Absolutely.
Like, the gift is we can walk into anything and be like, yep, we'll just figure this out.
Exactly.
And which is fantastic. And then also a threat to others because other folks can't uniquely
Big threat.
Like, we have our own special magic wherever we go.
Absolutely.
And it attracts people to want to work with us and see that we are the ones in charge. And then, of course, that is bad for some people because they're like, wait, people want to work with you and y'all are in charge.
Get her out of here.
Like,
get her out. How can we set her up?
How can we make life more difficult so she wants to leave?
Absolutely. More uncomfortable. It's like, it took me a while to feel comfortable walking into a room where I'm the only one. Because I know what they're thinking.
Exactly. And you're like,
but I changed my thinking and my language around that situation. And I use it to my benefit.
Of course.
Like, I'm going to walk into a room with my head held high. You're going to feel my energy. You're going to feel my presence. And I'm sitting at the head of the table. And I tell my sisters all the time that I work with, I said, I've watched you and you walk into the meeting and the first thing you do is sit along the sidelines. Why don't you come in and sit at the table? I said, you've been invited to the meeting.
You're here.
So obviously
sit your butt down.
You're needed.
Sit there. Sit.
And they're like, no, I can't. I said, there's no name. You know what I mean? There's no seating chart.
Sit your ass down.
Yes, you can sit at the table. And yes, you can lean in because you've been asked to attend.
You're not crashing the meeting. So
you're not crashing the meeting. But
through.
It's their I've watched this behavior. It's their natural inclination to take a seat along the wall. And, here, unbeknownst to me, because I'm still, I've been here for 3 years. There's been a lot of young African-American women here that have I've been on their, part of their dialogue. Like, oh my God, did you see her? Oh my gosh, my goodness. I speak to everyone. I speak to the cleaning people. I speak to everyone. So I was leaving one meeting one day and this, two African-American girls were walking past me. One of them, and I greeted them obviously. And one of them stopped and said, do you have a few minutes? I'm like, of course, girl. And she said that she was in a meeting and she was so impressed at the way I carried myself, it wasn't my meeting, but how I ran the meeting. And she was so proud to see a woman of color in this environment as a power player. I thanked her, obviously, but I asked her, well, where were you in the meeting? And she said, oh, I was sitting off in the corner because I didn't even see her in the meeting. And I told her, I said, don't do that anymore.
Of course.
Sit at the table. You're at the meeting for a reason.
You were invited.
Sit at the table. And she said, I will do that moving forward. I said, please do.
Because you got to.
We have to make people feel comfortable. Or, let me take that back. We need to get the people in power used to seeing us at the table. That's the only way we're going to even attempt to affect positive change.
It's the only way. So, what in the world would you tell 25-year-old Amani?
Oh, that's easy. Be kinder to yourself. I was so brutal. It was almost like no one could say anything to me that could trump what I say to myself. Everything was dire. Everything was a 911. I mean, I didn't even come up for air for years. And
like,
that's time.
Go.
Exactly.
You'll never
that's
get back.
Time I'm never going to get back. And it didn't have to be that way because I feel I would have been successful anyway. So I would tell myself to be kinder. It's going to work out.
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out, girl.
Like but it's hard because you look back and like, oh.
Exactly. but it's okay, So my mantra today that I remind myself, it was something my father would always say, live while it's still called today. Tomorrow doesn't exist until it's today.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So now you've figured out looking back on what you tell 25-year-old Amani,
Sure.
I hear you have a book coming.
Oh, I do. I'm so excited about it. I've been asked to write a book for years, but the publishers always wanted it to be like an expose, tell the dirty secrets of the music industry. And that's just not even my character. That's not even my ilk. So
not your story.
It's not my story. I'm all about pay it forward, women supporting women, empowerment. So it was really odd how it came about. I was home over the Christmas holiday last year, and one day I woke up and I said to my husband, I'm going to write a book. And 5 days later, 25,000 words, 14 chapters, the book was done.
5 days.
So, 5 days.
You wrote a book in 5 days.
5 days.
Ask a black woman.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, we can do anything we want to do with ease and grace. And the reason why I could write it so quickly was because it's my story.
You just flowed.
It's just my story. It's who I am. So the book is called Girlfriend, No Need to Ask. I'm already invested in your future. And it's basically half autobiographical, half self-help. So basically, I'm just taking the reader on a journey from my earliest memories to present day. And each chapter has, tidbits of advice, little anecdotes that hopefully will help young women and even mature women of all ages better navigate their careers. I wish someone had written this book when I was coming up. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes to the music industry.
Gotcha.
But really the Cliff Notes to life, because I don't believe I am my job. I work at MTV, but I'm not MTV. And I am the brand of Amani Duncan. So I always look at things from a holistic point of view. Sure, there's business lessons in the book, but there's also life lessons. Because we only got this one life and we want to make it great. So hopefully it will come out next year.
Wow.
And
fast.
Yeah, hopefully they feel it's very urgent.
It is.
And
well, I think there's a lot of these conversations that need to actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, it's very much this time, never than ever before, like hearing these stories from the people who actually are in business, because I think that's the big differentiator in this. Is it like, you can read Ray Dalio, you can read all these other really incredible men who can tell their semi-autobiographical stories along with the business and kind of self-help side of it, but it is very rare you hear the positive black woman in business story, and it's not trauma porn.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
exactly.
Really?
Yeah. We have to change the narrative. They've painted a picture of us to be, basically one note. And it's the trauma. We're dynamic. We're resilient. We're making profound change. And that, those are the stories that need to be highlighted.
It's like, it's not that I think that it's not that there isn't a place for it.
Sure.
But I think there's been so much placed on. I mean, there's a joke about the Oscars. Like, why is it that the only time a black woman will get nominated for an Oscar is if it's slavery? Because, that's the only thing you can sort of...
Right.
Those people who are making
they
decisions
want us in
to
that.
wrap your head around.
Exactly.
But Lupita Nyong'o, who plays someone who's two different characters,
literally
2 different characters with voices and changes, and you're like, well,
dynamic.
No, I don't. What? No,
yeah, I don't get it.
I'm
not sure. Yeah.
Or even the story about Katherine Johnson, who, may she rest in peace. It's like, why was that not in our history books? Like, we've all heard about the moon, but math. To get them back safe and sound,
profound impact on, the world.
it's like y'all just need to tell these stories. Because
Yeah.
at behind all of this has always been a really phenomenal Black woman who's got a really unique,
Absolutely.
bespoke story. And one of the ways that you can help make things for the better is that if you can be it, you can see it. And like,
Absolutely.
I mean, literally, that's literally why I'm doing it this way. Whether it's 29 days. Because I'm like, you can literally find 29 phenomenal Black women like that.
Mm-hmm.
Without asking for a celebrity,
right,
or a rap star,
right,
or an actress.
Exactly.
You can just go find 29 women who are just doing the damn thing on a daily basis,
like
changing the world.
Exactly.
And do that more often. Tell that story more often, because that's what's necessary for lots of little kids and little girls to see that, like, yeah, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and look where it takes me. Like, all the places you go. So
it's dynamic work that you're doing. And no, seriously. And it's one of the reasons why I just jumped at this opportunity, because I want to be a part of the change. And I want to support the change makers. Because that's the only way, like, we have to band together. It's the only way we're going to change the narrative.
The only way. So what's next for you? So you got the book coming out, you're head of music. So what's happening here in the land of music?
I know. You know, we created so much. We created a dynamic global music strategy here at MTV. Before I started, they weren't thinking global, which I was like, shame on you.
What are you
shame on you. You know, I'm a big supporter of, there's power in numbers. So we completely changed the landscape for music artists. We gave them a reason why. Because I believe all things start with why. So we gave them a reason why, and it goes back to you build it, they will come. And so, I feel really proud of the work that's been done. The road is still super young. There's still more work that needs to be done, but at least we're part of the dialogue. But the immediate future for me is I'm, always leaning in. I'm hosting and moderating a bunch of panels next month for International Women's Day. And I just got word this morning that I've been selected as a juror for the Cannes Lion.
Oh,
so
wow.
I am like, woohoo, South of France, here I come.
It's going to be lit.
It's really, I was blown away. I didn't even know I was submitted. So I am so honored and humbled and grateful to just even have that platform. And again, to represent us.
As a juror.
Yes.
That's going to be phenomenal. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun, kids.
Yay, I can't wait.
There'll be a lot.
Literally cannot wait.
There'll be a lot of rosé, trust me.
Very
Have you gone
good.
before?
No.
Wait.
It's my first.
See, perfect example.
I mean.
See, this is the point. Like, Cannes Lions is where you should have been going for years.
Never, let's keep in mind, I need to say this. There's people here, white men, that have gone. We even host an event during Cannes Lions.
I know.
Yeah.
See, this is the point.
But you know what? I found a way in.
You found a way in.
And that's what matters. I didn't ask for a seat. I pulled up my own seat at the table. Yeah. And I'm here. So that's a lesson that I share with a lot of people, especially women. Stop waiting for someone to pull the chair out for you. Just go get your chair, girl. Go get it.
Sit.
Exactly. And get comfortable.
Get very comfortable. And also when you sit at the table, speak up. So because the other thing is you can bring your chair, but if you just sit there, problem. Open your mouth.
Absolutely. I tell everyone, every meeting you attend, ask one question. One question. Or, feed on someone's,
building off of this.
Exactly. But you cannot sit there in silence.
No wallflowers here, darling.
No. We're here to be in constant motion.
Shake the table.
That's right.
None of this quietness.
No.
So you have all this going on. What do you do for your self-care? Is it reality TV? Is it massages, travel? I feel like there's a lot here.
There is a lot. I am such a supporter of me time because I went years without it. Years. And I said, no more. So I carve out exercise. I'm going to a soul cycle class tonight. I, when I'm on my downtime, I get a massage to de-stress. I love binge watching programs, Homeland, Netflix, Apple TV. I am binge watching to just escape. And knitting.
Really?
Knitting is the new thing, girl. Knitting is
knew?
I started knitting out of just because I was driving myself crazy. I had a major surgery last year, and I was on leave for 2 months, and I was going stir crazy.
Oh my gosh!
And I took up knitting. It's like meditation.
Really?
Literally, it's like meditation. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Literally.
Knitting. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's like if you feel like a grandma, but
you're like,
yeah.
okay.
But there's so many fun patterns and fun colors, and knitting.
You're in a mode.
You're in a zone, and it's just you and your needles and the yarn. It's
wow,
great.
Go figure.
It's great.
Hey, listen, whatever works, because you look fabulous. So clearly, it is working. And so the last question that we ask as part of 29 Days of Magic is like, what to give or an ask. So the ask could be of the audience or just of the universe, and the same thing goes for the give part. It could be like you want to give out to the universe or give out to the audience. So what do you think?
I love to always ask. Because we give our time, our energy, our passion, we give constantly. So I want things to be actionable. So the ask is for every woman, person that's listening, please do yourself a big favor. Please sit at the table in every meeting that you attend. And I ask that you please speak up and ask one question at every meeting you attend. No wallflowers, like Laura said. You're there for a reason. Speak up, be present, be actionable. That's the only way we're going to get the powers to be used to seeing us in the room and at the table.
Awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better way to end it.
Thank you.
So Amani, we're gonna keep on chatting.
I hope so.
It's been such a delight to have you on the show, and we'll put your information in the show notes so folks can follow you on all the social medias, and be waiting for your book when it comes out, because it's going to be phenomenal.
Thank you.
Clearly,
I hope.
Come on. Are you going to fail? No.
Exactly. That's true. Failure is not part of the vernacular.
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. We're not going to do it.
But yeah, this has just been such a delight, and
Same
so amazing to hear your story. And I know that you're going to help a ton of women who are going to be like, "Oh, girl, really?" So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. And that is our show.